Good morning, good afternoon, and or good evening. You are watching Nub's Collection, a YouTube series dedicated to the cataloging and review of every game in my physical media collection. This episode is going to be a bit of a eulogy for something that I had promised. Unfortunately, Miracle Warriors Seal the Dark Lord was meant to be a long play, and as for reasons that I'll get into as we start playing this game, I made the decision that this was just not going to work out as a game that we would look at over the entire course of a playthrough. But we will go ahead and set it up as we do with every other game in Nub's Collection. So Miracle Warriors was released in October of 1988. So this one's a little bit out of order for the games that we normally look at. Normally we do them in release order, and this one's a little bit ahead of some of the other ones that we have coming up. But I had already started recording the long play, and a couple of things had dawned on me that were going to prohibit this game from being worth looking at in the long term. So let's go ahead and get started. We're just going to do a fresh play, and no matter what happens, it's alright, because this is just going to be a one-off instead of the long play. Can I please spell my name correctly? Nub, not Nuck. Should probably look at the TV instead of the recording feed, because there is a delay. So, let's do the story setup for this game. We'll do the first page, which has a little bit of story setup. So, this section is not called What's Happening, which you're so used to hearing in some of the other games. It's simply called Miracle Warriors, Seal of the Dark Lord. If thou be strong and noble, a mighty quest awaits thee. After a millennium of peace, the Dark Lord Terarin hast freed herself and stolen the Golden Seal, opening Pandora's Passage to the evil dimension. Now hordes of fearsome monsters can roam the land. Come, follow in the footsteps of the mighty Iason, I-A-S-O-N. I'm not sure if that's supposed to be pronounced Iason or Jason or Iason, and defeat the Dark Lord. Only you, the Miracle Warrior, can return the seal to its rightful place. The Legend of Iason. This is the next section. Long ago, in a land of swords and sorcery, a stumbling shepherd lad named Iason unknowingly opened the Pandora Passage. Through this gateway, all manner of evil creatures were let loose upon the five lands, under the claws of the Dark Lord Terarin. As Iason grew into a man, he watched Terarin's nightmare army devastate the five lands. Since it was he who had unleashed this evil, he took a vow to defeat Terarin and restore peace to this world. Iason trained with the White Monks, learning the ways of the King's Sword, and the magical dangers of Terarin's evil horde. To help him on his quest, the monks gave him magical arms and armor. After a long and valiant battle, Iason defeated Terarin and drove her into another dimension. Then, his armor glowing gold, Iason resealed the Pandora Passage. The people of the Five Lands made him a legend. Before he went back to the life of a shepherd, Iason made a prophecy that one day Terarin would return, and that 4 brave warriors would awake to meet her evil challenge. Next section. Art thou the Miracle Warrior? There was a time not long ago when Terarin escaped from her entrapment and, with a howl of rage that shook the world, once again unleashed her terror upon the land. You watched the Five Lands suffer under her ruthless campaign of evil as you wandered from country to country. Then, one fine, cloudless day, your wanderings led you to a castle, where you learned of your true destiny. The blood of Iason flows in your veins, but were you the one fated to bring an end to Terarin's evil? Only time would tell as you learn the ways of magic and the sword. And that's it for the story setup. So, Miracle Warriors is very much an RPG in the sense that you wander an overworld map, you get into random encounters, and you fight enemies. This game is no exception to those kinds of tropes. Fate calls thee to bar evil's entry. Thou must seek the seal of the Dark Lord. The seal is guarded in the Gorkus Shrine. Quickly find the ancient sage Kusama. This, however, is part of the issue with the game as far as the random encounters was concerned. If you've played any kind of RPG in the last 20 years, you're familiar with one thing that should be standard across the board for all video games that have any kind of random encounters and fights, and we'll see in a second here. Let's go ahead and beat this guy up. Alright, he's dead. At the end of the fight, we get 2 fangs. Unfortunately, when you fight enemies in this game, they don't all drop money. As you could see in just the very first encounter in the game, I lost about 20% of my health. The only way you can recover health in this game is to go back to a healer and pay him whatever he asks for to heal. I got 2 fangs. You can sell fangs in this game, which is the second problem. But the only way that you can do that is to go to a special merchant. That is it this one? No, we're not doing this guy. Leave me alone. I think he's right here. I think it's this guy. Come on. You can sell fangs for 50 guilders each to him. Here's the problem with that. I'll go ahead and do yes this time. You don't have a choice over how many fangs you can sell to him. Now you go, what's the big deal? You just sell items like you would any other game where you need money to purchase equipment or heal yourself. You require fangs to get the important equipment in this game. One of the very first things that you have to find in order to advance the game is you have to get an axe that is exclusive to your main character. The axe costs 300 fangs. If you go out into the overworld and you fight enemies, and you get into a bad streak where the only enemies you're fighting are monsters that only drop fangs, and you are starting to take too much damage to survive, your only option is to sell all the fangs you have so that you can get the money to heal yourself and advance. There are enemies in this game that do drop money. There's also encounters like this where there's a gentleman that you can't hurt because if you attack him, your character points, which are in the bottom right corner there with the plus sign next to them, will actually go down. Your character points are required in order to access later events in the game, get into certain caves, encounter certain people, and as we're about to see, because I got in a fight with an enemy that's too tough, I'm going to die. That's the second enemy in the entire game that I fought, and he's already killed me. Now, I could have saved, but I hadn't really done anything yet. I went out and fought, whatever, just XX. I'll talk to this guy again. In just 2 encounters to start the game, I had already been killed. I had done literally nothing. I got 40 gold and got a tiny bit of character growth. Those are very defeating aspects of a video game. And unfortunately, when you combine all of those things, the difficulty in acquiring money, enemies that you get into fights with so early in the game, and that are so difficult to defeat, you can't even make any progress, because they're going to kill me before I get a chance to earn any kind of cash and try to add to my inventory. This game is going to be impossible to do as a long play. I found that out the hard way in the very first episode of the long play, because I did start recording it. What happened was, in the first episode, I died 3 times without saving in just about every case. And as a result, the first episode had almost no progress. I did eventually manage to get some of the base equipment that you need in order to defend yourself and actually defeat some enemies. But it took almost 50 minutes grinding for money to get what I needed. And it's prohibitively expensive. Just a dagger was 3,000 gold. I beat this guy up, and he'll give me 2 fangs worth $100. So unfortunately, they made the loop of gaining experience, getting equipment, and the money you require to buy not only weapons, but also magic items and ships, far too difficult to be worth the effort to try to do this as a long play. So I do apologize. I think I had promised at the end of Golvelius that we were going to do a long play this game. Unfortunately, I did not do my due diligence and actually try playing this game before we started recording. One of the things I like to do with these games that I haven't played in some cases in 20 or more years, I like to go in fresh so that some of the experience is surprising to me. Anyway, that's part of the reason why this long play is not going to take place, and we're just going to do this as a standard episode of Nub's Collection. But I don't want to make this all just a negative experience. Let's have some fun like we normally do with these episodes. One of the things I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and chuck some things, get a little bit of cash, heal up, and describe what the experience is like playing this game. As I said before, it's your standard RPG fare. You go out, you get into random fights. In theory, you get cash. You use that to buy equipment. You have to go take on enemies, boss characters. In this game, there are some that protect unique equipment that you have to have in order to finish the game and to get companions. As the instruction manual laid out, there are 4 companions that you need in order to take on the boss. I don't know why I'm fighting this guy. It's kind of a jerk thing. I'm going to get money. I'm going to lose all my character points, though. Look at that. I'm now negative 80. They may not even let me in the town. Wow. Yeah, if your character points get too low, they won't even let you in the town. That's kind of funny. I hadn't done that before. There are some cool aspects of this game. One of the things that I really liked about this game when I was younger is that the boss, or the enemy designs rather, in some cases are very cool. Unique character designs, in fact. One of the things I didn't like about this game, and I wish we could take a look at it, but I don't think I'll be able to get enough experience to actually go hunting for one of these guys, is that there are a particular type of enemy in this game called muck, I believe. And we'll throw a picture up on the screen here just to show you guys what I'm talking about. That enemy gave me no end of nightmares as a kid. The design of it is creepy on a level I can't describe to you for a little kid to see. The things that I have always found creepy in the design of people is eyeballs that have a couple of different characteristics. One, when the pupil and the what's the white? The iris. I'm not sure if that's it or if that's is that the cornea? Whatever the white is, I'll pop a word up here to say what it is on the screen. When they flip the colors, so when the white of the eye is entirely black and the pupil is white, that is a very creepy design for an eyeball. 2, when the pupil of the eye is very beady and tiny. That's a very scary design to me for an enemy's eyeball. 3, if an eye has an indefinite, like amoeba-like shape to it, and the pupil remains perfectly round, there's something about the design of that is very unsettling to me. Now, in the case of muck, the eyeball kind of fits more into the description I had for the very first one, which is black. The white of the eye is black and the pupil is white. At least that's what I think it is. Those may actually be teeth. It's hard to tell with the graphics that they provided in this game. And if I hadn't mentioned it before, we play these games on the original hardware, so some of the imperfections in the graphics, scan lines, kind of some jaggy edges to the pixels in these games, those are a result of playing on, 35-year-old hardware. Avoidable if you use newer consoles, and I had thought about it a lot, but I decided that if I can make one of the original consoles work to play these games, I wanted to do so going forward in these weekly episodes. I think there's something appealing about, using the original hardware and playing the games on them as intended. In some cases, it'll be unavoidable, and we'll kind of cover this at the end of the episode here about what I'm talking about. There will be some games that, fortunately, we will be able to play that I didn't think we were going to be able to play, but I'll talk about that more in a little bit. See, some enemies, they beat you up and they give you a couple of fangs. And the number of fangs that I got from them wouldn't even cover the amount of health I'm going to require. This is one of the few enemies that is actually of value to you in your playthrough. The evil monks actually have, or excuse me, this is an evil merchant. They actually carry a lot of money. So when you kill them, which we'll do here, as this is a very soft enemy, they give you 2,000 guilders. Unfortunately, they don't pop up very often. So you'll spend, 15, 20 minutes walking in circles trying to fight enemies to get the money you need to heal for a single monk to pop up. And in the time it took you to find that monk and get the money, you've already spent most of what you had earned previously trying to... no, we don't have any of that stuff. Trying to find one merchant to earn some extra cash. And we'll look at what I was talking about for the cost of items. 3,000 bucks for a knife. So I can do a little bit more damage than I had been doing before. It's not going to be a huge improvement. The biggest way to improve your damage potential in this game is leveling up. You have to fight to level up. One of the things that we won't be able to see in this particular episode is that if you have multiple companions in your party, the only way they can level up is to attack. Some of them start out pretty well leveled up. Some of them start out at the very bottom of the experience scale, kind of like where I'm at right now. In addition, every attack phase, you only get one attack. So if I had 3 people in my party, I'd have to pick one person to do an attack, and the other 2 would not do anything. Here's where that can be a little bit unfair. There are enemies in this game that can use spells, and those spells will hit everyone in your party. You only get to hit them one time. They get to hit you 4 times if you have all 4 people in your party. That's not really fair design. This game was clearly designed to appeal to an older audience. And I can tell you now, while I probably did play this when I was younger, this is most certainly a game that probably my mother or my older sister would have purchased and enjoyed a lot more than I did. The enemy designs were cool, and I did like playing and leveling up, but some of the design of this game is just not fair for a younger audience. And there's another aspect of the game that probably should have informed anyone purchasing the game that it probably wasn't meant to be played by kids. The final enemy of the game, character named Terarin, is a female succubus. It's probably the best description. And while the cover art of the game, which I'll probably put up on the screen here now, is very much a standard medieval fantasy trope of a couple of warriors facing an evil demon monster. That evil demon monster, or succubus, what have you, is fully clothed. In this game, and in the original game, I believe it was released on MSX, she was definitely not clothed. She was topless. And they went maybe into a little too much detail designing the character model. Beating up so many merchants, they're now afraid of me. It's kind of funny. I would show that, but I'm thinking if this series is meant to be appropriate for all ages, probably not great. I'll just tell you, if you want to see the character model for yourself, Google it, Terarin Miracle Warriors. It's spelled Terarin. Or you could just look up the bestiary for Miracle Warriors, which I'll be using just to reference the Muck character that it should have popped up on the screen earlier. Not to mention, beyond Muck, there are some other enemy designs that are frankly terrifying to anyone that thinks monsters with tentacles or big, scary-looking eyes might be frightening to look at. They went overboard on the design of some of these enemies. They are genuinely scary. But as you can tell from what we've been doing so far, just kind of fighting enemies in the early offing of this game, the game is very static. Character models don't really move. When they fight, they blink or they bounce up and down a little bit, but they don't actually have additional cells of animation. Again, what I was saying before about making money, I haven't found really anyone that dropped any significant amount of cash in a long time since I started complaining about that at the beginning of this episode. In the first, I recorded 2 episodes of the long play. I did make progress eventually. In the second episode, I did get enough fangs to purchase the axe that I needed for my character, and I found the first companion to put in my party. And I did a fair amount of leveling up in the process. Then came the thing that was maybe the biggest kick in the junk of this entire series of Nubs Collection that I've been recording for the last close to a month now. About a minute into the recording of the 3rd episode, a little blip happened on my TV screen. I didn't think anything of it at the time. What I didn't realize is that the capture card that I feed all of the images from the screen into so that we can record had shut itself off. Unfortunately, the way that I have it set up, the screen that shows me all of the capture information, the reference, is on the far right of my viewing of the TV that we're actually playing the game on. I didn't look over to the capture feed until I was getting ready to end the episode for that day. So I made about an hour's worth of progress, leveling up, getting some magical items, and I lost all of that progress because it didn't record any of it. After that episode, I had to do a little bit of soul searching, ask myself, do I want to try to recap what happened in the 3rd episode and just pretend that everything is going to work out just fine? Do I want to do some of the off-screen grinding that I say in many episodes of the long plays I may end up doing, and just say, ooh, look, after the 2nd episode, I did a bunch of extra grinding so that we could get further in the game? Or do I just come clean, tell everyone that we lost an episode, and say that, in combination with some of the other problems I'm running into, just make this long play unfeasible? And I'm afraid I made the decision that it would probably not be in my interest or my audience's interest to continue playing a game that is so difficult, that is so cheap with money. And if it's related to the game or the hardware, I don't know. This episode, I have been looking over to the capture feed to make sure it's still recording. Has not cut out yet, thankfully. I'm hoping that was just a one-time glitch and not a sign of an issue with my capture card. But I decided that just this wasn't going to be worth our time. Not to mention, this game, like I said, static enemy models, static character models, a lot of just walking around and fighting enemies and not getting a whole lot of story. The story in this game is very sparse. This was not going to make a good long play. And I apologize. I did think when I initially started this long play, this was going to be worth it. There was going to be some payoff. Maybe some embarrassing moments that would be laugh-worthy for my playthroughs. Maybe some interesting talk about enemies that we'd see on the way. But it was not looking good after 3 episodes, even before knowing that I had lost the 3rd episode to a glitch. There was a boss. I went to face my first boss in the game shortly into the 3rd episode. And I thought I had done some fairly good leveling. I had gotten the weapon for the 2nd companion in my party. And it was a fairly strong weapon. He was fully kitted out. He had all the armor and the shield that he needed. and so did I. And I said, well, give it a try. There was an item that we went to go pick up called the Sacred Nut that you have to farm out in the woods in one of the continents to the west of here that allows you to damage the enemy without them getting an attack back. You throw the nut, it hits them for a certain amount of damage, and they have absolutely no recourse. They take the damage, and then you get your next turn without any response. I thought with that, in combination with the weapons that we had picked up, we should be able to beat the first boss in the game. I got absolutely hosed. The first boss that I fought, even after we had taken half his bar of health away, just throwing those nuts at him, and I think you can carry a max of 11, he still killed both of my characters in, I think, 3 hits each. And this was after getting both of them leveled about 6 or 7 times. And as you can see, after just 2 levels, I've already grown to about a quarter of my health bar. So you don't have to do a ton of leveling in this game. In total, I would guess you get maybe 10 levels of experience. Yep, go ahead. So that was frustrating, and I thought to myself, I am going to have to do a lot of grinding to get the experience I need to fight this enemy. The problem was that boss that I was having difficulty defeating with leveled up and strong characters, you have to defeat him to get a piece of armor to get your 3rd companion. So that was going to be a gating for any progress that I was, a bottleneck, I guess you would say, for any progress we were going to make in this particular long play. And I didn't have fun getting to that point. I felt like the episodes were very dry. I sounded disconnected because there was just so much running around and doing random encounters, and they weren't terribly engaging or fun. Because your only options in most fights are attack or use one of your magical items, which you only get 3 in the entire game. So this was a drier RPG experience than I originally thought it was going to be. Alright, go ahead and retreat. Just get out of there. So, I think that's going to be a good stopping point. I kind of yammered on enough about this game as it was. Let's do the review phase. Probably not the fairest thing to do in the world if I haven't played the full game all the way through, but I have enough recollection of the experience of playing it in the past that I think I can offer a justifiable review of the game. Let's do the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good is hard to say. Frankly, I had, I guess, rose-tinted glasses when I played this game last, that it was a more entertaining experience than it actually is. I guess if I had to find a good for this game, it's that there is plenty of unique obstacles in the game that are fun, if a bit challenging. Getting the boss encounters and their caves that you go into to go fight tougher enemies. They can be fun, although they are a bit challenging at times as well. As far as the bad, as I said, this game is prohibitively difficult. Some of the early moments of this game can be very unfair. An enemy encounter 2 steps away from where you start the game, the enemy can kill you and you have absolutely no recourse. You have no additional attack options. You can try to run away, but he's just going to hit you because running in this game, much like any other game, does not have a great chance of success. And you try to run away and the game tells you you've been surrounded. You take a hit and you have absolutely no response to it. You just try to run away again. As for the ugly, as I said before, the game kind of tried to sneak some nudies in there, I guess, at the end of the game. Probably in poor taste. And of course, as I mentioned before, that muck monster is... It was the bane of my existence for maybe 5 years of my life, from, say, age 8 or 9 until 13 or 14. Whenever I had a bad dream, it usually involved that monster design. And if you find that laughable, I challenge you to say whatever has given you nightmares as a kid and tell me that they are not equally as ridiculous. As for a score, again, we do these rating systems now on Randars, 1 to 10 Randars. If I'm being fair to this game, I gotta give it 3 Randars. The difficulty element of this game is just not fun. Again, being an early RPG, some of the static imagery in the game is kind of a letdown. Even this environment that you see moving around in the game is kind of lame. Not to mention the experience of grinding to get money and gold in this game. It just wasn't fun. There are RPGs that came out after this that did it far better and are far more engaging. And I don't think I'm saying no to any long plays involving RPGs in the future. I think just in the case of this particular game, this is going to be a hard pass. You can't do a long play of this. I think after 2 episodes, no one would watch any of the others, and I would be wasting my time continuing. So, 3 Randars for this particular game. If you're offered a chance to pick up this game, kindly pass. So, I did say that there was going to be a little bit of a postscript to the end of this episode, talking about where we want to go in the future for long plays. The rest of the games on Sega Master System, I don't think would make for good long plays, simply because in many cases, they're games that either you can't actually complete, there is no ending, or that the experience of playing them is going to be like some of the previous episodes of Nub's Collection, where I would get maybe a level or 2 into it and die and have to start all over again. Those wouldn't be very fun to watch as a long play, if even possible. However, I had an opportunity to pick up a Retron 5, which is one of these third-party retro consoles that gives me the opportunity to play some games that I didn't think we were going to be able to look at in an episode of Nub's Collection. Particularly, I can actually get an adapter base that I can attach to this console, which, by the way, the base console for Retron 5 allows you to play Nintendo, Famicom, I believe Super Famicom, Super Nintendo, and Sega Genesis games, and there is a side port that allows you to, more important than those, play Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance games. I do not own any Game Boy or Game Boy Color games, however I do have a small number of Game Boy Advance games. And the good news for that is, I have a copy of Final Fantasy VI Advance in that collection, which I had been pondering if a long play of Final Fantasy VI, more commonly known to some older players as Final Fantasy III, if a long play of that game would be feasible and possibly fun to look at. Even better is that I have Final Fantasy VI Advance, and if you know anything about that particular game, they cleaned up some translation issues in the original release of the game, and they added a late-stage dungeon that was exclusive to the Game Boy Advance version of that game. So I think we may take a look at that in the future. Also, with the adapter base for the Sega Genesis, which allows you to play Sega Master System games, not too big a deal because we have a working console right now. We're going to pause here just to give the game a little different flavor. There we go. In addition to being able to play Sega Master System and Sega Genesis games, which I don't have Sega Genesis games, unfortunately, guys, it does allow you to play Game Gear games. And I do have a Game Gear. Most of those games are going to be atrocious, but I think it's going to be fun to look at them anyway. So I will probably pick up the adapter base to plug into my Retron, and we will take a look at not only Game Boy Advance games, but also Game Gear games. Haven't decided when we're going to do that. Unfortunately, I'm a little bit hazy on when we picked up the Game Gear and the Game Boy Advance. I actually don't think I had a Game Boy Advance. I had a Nintendo DS, which had a port that allowed you to play Game Boy Advance games in it. So that's some good news for the future of the channel. In addition, now that I have a working Retron and I did a test on one of the Nintendo games that I had some problems playing in the past, I am happy to announce that the next long play is actually going to be an NES game. We'll do that while we're still looking at Sega Master System games, but the good news is this is one that I am certain I can beat. I may even be able to do it in one episode. But our next long play, and this time I promise I'm not going to renege on this, is going to be Shadowgate. I love that game. I think it's going to be fun to look at some of the fun aspects of it, in particular the deaths. This is very much an adventure game if you've never heard of it. And the way it works is you play it kind of like you would have played Zork or one of those written word role-playing type adventure games where you go to a room, you have a description of what you see around you, and then you have some choices. Touch, look, take, hit, speak, those kinds of things. And there are some very unique and interesting deaths in that game that we're going to take a look at, but I think that's going to be a lot of fun. So I do apologize that Miracle Warriors didn't pan out, but I think it's for the best, not only for my personal enjoyment, but also for viewer retention, that we just bail on this as hard as we can, because this was going to be a rough long play if we try to stick it out. Anyway, I think that'll do it for this particular episode of Nub's Collection. As always, I do appreciate you all tuning in, and I will see you next time.